Great, thank you, Raymond. So hi, my name is Hiroko Ikuta. I'm a social anthropologist, and I work for the International Student Center at Kyushu University right now. But I did my bachelor and master's degree at University of Alaska Fairbanks, and then did my Ph.D. in Scotland. And then came back to the United States and worked for Dartmouth College. And then before I came to Kyushu University, I used to work for Alaska Department of Fish and Game, Division of Subsistence, which is wildlife management for the state of Alaska. So I lived in Alaska for 18 years. And so, yes. So when I came to Fukuoka, it just killed me, this humidity and this hot weather. And so I'm an anthropologist, and I'm particularly interested in wildlife management and indigenous peoples in the Arctic, and so on and so forth. By the way, this is me. I didn't make up, in a gaudy way, but this is when, minus 40 below 0 Celsius when I went to dog walk. So, it's cold place, but just, there is some glimpse of Arctic. So let me talk about climate change in the Arctic. So here is Northern Lights, climate change in the Arctic. I'm not going to talk about space weather, but this was part of my daily life because Northern Lights was always there when it's dark, and then when it's there. So this is a figure from the NASA website, and then basically what it says is NASA announced summer 2023 was the hottest on record. And you may have seen this kind of figure before, but basically what it says is the zero is the average between 1951 and 1980, and then compared to the climate, the red color is over 4 Celsius. And there, as you see, in the high Arctic, and then Japan is here, and then western part of Africa, and then some Antarctica were really, really hot. And I'm sure in 2024, maybe hotter. And then this is another figure from the NASA. And then basically what it says is, so it may be hard to see, but there is a green line here. And then, so this was sea ice, and the average of sea ice size between 1981 and 2010 was here. But compared to the 2023, just sea ice was really, the size of sea ice is really decreasing. And then NASA announced Arctic sea ice in 2023 was 6th lowest on the record. And then this is a graph of the area of the sea ice. So how does it impact on in the Arctic? There are so many ways, and there's so many impacts. But one of them is erosion, because the sea level is getting higher, and then there are lots of unexpected stormy weather everywhere. And then this is a picture of Shishmaref, the name of the village in western Alaska. And then basically, it's really, really serious erosion issues, many coastal regions in Alaska. And then another impact would be sea mammals. So, sea mammals like walrus or polar bear or seal, they usually swim between ice, maybe. And if the distance between ice is longer, they have to swim all the way. And it's really hard. And then when there is ice, these animals get together on the small pieces of ices. And then so, of course, the animals are impacted. And then so as the people, there are people who catch animals. And then this is a walrus. And then there are subsistence hunting and fishing in Alaska. And then this is actually the huntings that I went on. And also they cut walrus meat. And, it's part of their, daily food, daily life. And it's me cutting walrus meat. And then this is a picture of walrus stomach. But anyway, so, and then this is their drum, dried stomach, and then they use it for the membrane, for the drums, and so on and so forth. So the point is, it is part of their lives in those ice fishing. So now we briefly saw the impact of, global warming, right, on the peoples and the animals. So does melting sea ice really negative effects only? Well, yes and no. One of the things is there are huge amount of natural resources in the Arctic. So for example, oil, so 13% of the world estimated reserves are found in the Arctic. And then, so over 80% of them may be in the depths of less than 500 meters, because the ocean in the Arctic is quite shallow compared to other parts of the ocean, like, anyway, so. And then also natural gas, there is 30% of the world estimated reserves are found in the Arctic. And also there are lots of gold and, silver, rare earths, and so on and so forth. And then when the global warming is more advanced, there may be Arctic passage could be part of, active route between Asia and Europe, and so on and so forth. So anyway, so there are some people who are really excited for the global warming. So now let's talk about the people in the Arctic. So subsistence whaling and oil development in the Arctic. So subsistence fishing and hunting are really the major characteristics in rural Alaska. In the Alaska Arctic, people harvest over 57 tons of wild food annually. And it's really huge because in Alaska, for example, the size of Alaska is 4 times as big as Japan. So it's bigger than entire Western Europe. However, the population is just 147 of Japanese population. So the point is, there are only a few people living in the vast size of the land living. So subsistence is quite important. And the monetary value of subsistence fishing and hunting is approximately over 103 million US dollar annually. And then for indigenous peoples who live in the coastal regions of Alaskan Arctic, bowhead whale is not merely food, but it really symbolizes their spirituality and worldview, like, rice for Japanese. So just for those of you who don't know about bowhead whale, it's a huge creature. The size is like 14 to 70 meters, and it could be 75 to 100 tons. It's really huge, like this big. And then, but it's their food, it's part of their life. And then whale gives themselves to culturally well-respected whaling captains who are responsible to generously share the whale meat to everyone in the community. So again, it's not only food, but also it's connected to their spirituality, and they're also connected to their social system. And even in the 21st century, subsistence whaling is still spiritually quite important. So this is when they caught whale, and then they cut. The entire community came to the site, and then they cut whale together. And depending on the size of the whale, but it could be like 7 to 8 hours, like 120, 200 people working. And then this is when spring whaling they do. And this is the skin boat, and then so this is the bowhead. This is the bearded seal skin, and then, so this is when they are waiting for the whale, and so forth. And then we did huge research into how the whale meat is distributed. And so I'm not going to explain the spaghetti of this figure, but as you see, it's really interwoven how, people in the community as well as outside of the communities are shared the whale meat. So now I told you subsistence whaling is quite important. So how does oil development and subsistence whaling could live together? So now I'm going to talk about offshore oil development, not land oil development, because land oil development has been there since 1970s, but offshore oil development is still in the process of approval and so on and so forth. So oil and gas expert believes that Alaskan Arctic Ocean may hold some of the world's largest remaining oil field, as we talked about. And in 1979, the United States federal government held the first federal sale of offshore lease in the Beaufort Sea, outer continental shelves along the northern coast of Alaska. And so because, it's outer continental shelf, it's the possession of the federal government, like any countries. So in September 2018, the Alaskan Beaufort Sea contained about 54 active leases for a total of 482 hectares. And however, still today, large-scale development for offshore drilling hasn't been started. The reason is quite complicated and simple, because in the Arctic, it's really cold, low temperature. And then, they have huge storm, and then because the ocean is quite shallow, when storm comes and the sea ice is there, the ocean is really mixture of everything, and then it destroys so many facilities. And also we have long winter, so in the above Arctic Circle, in winter, the sun goes down around November 20th, and then the next time when you see the sun, it will be January 20th. Oh my God. So it's quite dark, and quite windy, quite stormy, and then quite dark. And then also, so as I said, it's shallow water, so high wave, rough water, and power of sea ice is really crazy. And then finally, even in an accident, there is accident, no one can get there and then work on that. So that's part of the big reasons that they still cannot develop actively offshore drilling, offshore oil development. So how do the indigenous peoples react offshore oil development? So offshore oil and gas development brings the opportunity for jobs for many Alaskans, right? Think about, if you are living in a village of 200 to 900, there is no industry, right? There is no job. So these things really brings lots of money to the region. However, it comes a high risk of interference with nutritiously and culturally critical bowhead. And not only bowhead whale, but also, seal or walrus or fish or other subsistence hunting and fishing. And then much of the development work is taking place in the four migratory paths of bowhead whale. So if they start oil development in the ocean, it interferes bowhead migration to the route overlaps. And the industrial work brings noise, of course, and water contaminations, which will drive the four migratory bowhead whales away from the migratory route where they are accessible to the hunters. So it may be far from the land, And then, however, oil development will bring benefits to not only oil industry, but also for local peoples. And then, by the way, this is the map of the oil reserve and so for migration route. So this is the North American continent, and then this is mainland of the United States, and then this is Canada, and then this is Alaska. And then, so just cut here, and then, so the dark spots are oil reserves owned by, mainly by the federal government, but also some of them are native land. And then these are gray, so it's maybe hard to see. This is the land, and then this is the ocean, and then this is Russia. So these gray colors are, whale migration route. So anyway, so you could see there are overlaps between whale migration route and oil reserves. And then, so there are overlaps. However, we have to think about rural economy of Alaska and subsistence and cash economy. So in 1974, the state of Alaska granted the North Slope borrow for really far-reaching powers, including the right to tax the petroleum industry, and which includes property tax for facilities like pipelines. And in 2020, the total revenue of the borrow was about $531 million. And then 75% of the total revenue came from the property tax from oil industry. And in 2012, the petroleum, the population in the region is less than 10,924. It's really small amount of population. But their median household income is quite high. It is over $83,472 US. And we are talking about northernmost community of Alaska and in North America. So, so price for store-bought food is also really expensive because everything has to be imported by air. So a dozen of eggs could be over 35 US. It's really, really ridiculous. And then one bag of potato chip could be over $20 or something. So, and then, so many people support oil development, but there are lots of issues. So one of the solutions that they are doing is co-management by oil industry, Alaska Natives, and US federal government. And so, so they built a system, the US federal government, oil industry, and representatives of subsistence whalers work and manage the development together. And it happened since mid-1980s. And they have meetings like 3 or 4 times a year, like 2 weeks each, to discuss environmental impact of offshore oil development. And then they really actively engage with traditional ecological knowledge and shared by native peoples, along with scientific knowledge shared by Western scientists. And the oil companies also give presentations of plans of offshore drillings. And while native commissioners discuss issues may affect whale migration and subsistence whaling. And how noise and water pollutions could be measured and avoided. So, there are lots of details that I can talk about like for semesters. But for the simplified version, it is one of the successful examples of co-management. In Alaska, there are lots of large-scale natural resource development like gold mining or natural gas and oil development. But this particular system is considered to be successful co-management by various stakeholders who seek different resources. And then also other regions in the world, like not only in Alaska, but also different parts of the United States and Canada, try something similar, but many of them are not successful. And so, and then one of the reasons that they are quite successful is the local people in this region has lots of money. So they could hire lots of lawyers and scientists, and then also lobbyists and so forth. And however, it's not always rosy, so there are lots of issues. And then Raymond said I should stop. So I'd like to stop here. And any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, for questions, we'll go down from here. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yes, so I think you had a lot of exposure to the region and you're quite passionate about it. So what would you hope to happen in the future?
In this particular region, or?
Yes, in a situation where, I mean, there's interest in oil, there's indigenous people, so what would you like to happen?
Okay, I'm quite, in reality, there are so many issues, and there's so many different stakeholders, and there's so many different interests, but I hope they continue working together, because there are always a relationship between indigenous peoples versus oil company or federal government. But in this particular case, they have been doing well in the past 30, 40 years. However, in different parts of Alaska, there are always past struggles. Part of the reason is native people don't have resources. And they always, develop these companies have much more power. So I hope they continue working together and then try to find a way for the sustainable development.
You've talked a lot about the relationship between subsistence whaling and the communities and oil companies. But you started the presentation talking about climate change.
Right.
But then, so did you have a message about the relationship of the communities and oil companies and the relationship with climate change?
Okay, sorry, I think I wasn't clear. But because climate change happens, and then humans, we are easier to access to natural resource in the Arctic because the ocean is shallow, and we have easy access to the oil than other parts of the United States, or, in terms of the depth. So the message is because of the climate change, natural resource development has been quite active. Therefore, it impacts on people living there, animals and humans.
Right.
Okay.
Good. So I have a question. What was your motivation to go to Alaska to study those people? And also you have indigenous people, Ainu people in the north of Hokkaido. that they, since more than 20 years, was not recognized by the Japanese government. But you went to Alaska to learn. What do you believe that Japan has done better in that way comparing? I knew Alaska because you give a lot of examples, positive examples, how the collaboration between the government and those people in Alaska work very well in successful cases. But why do you think in Japan it's a very still distant topic?
Right. Well, there are lots of questions. So first, before I went to Alaska, I used to work for a bank in Tokyo. And I quit my bank. And then I went to Alaska and then became a student and so on and so forth. So my motivation at the time was I just didn't want to be bank teller girl in the next 50 years. And I wanted to do some, something really adventurous and so on and so forth. And then regarding Ainu, I really, I don't know much about that. I'm still in the process of learning. But situation of Ainu people and indigenous peoples in the United States are quite different. So for example, in the United States, the indigenous people or tribal government has a government-to-government relationship with the US federal government, which Ainu people in Japan don't. And then also in terms of subsistence and language retention and politics and so on and so forth, so many things are quite different. And then also history is different. So I guess it's really, I don't know how to say in the best way, but I don't think we shouldn't compare. It's like comparing orange and apples.
So I would ask the oil drilling in the North Arctic. So you said that it was very difficult. It is very difficult. Oil drilling in the Arctic is very difficult. But in Europe or Russia, they are drilling oil drilling in the cold water.
Right.
So are there any things or many things you can learn from their drill, and so that they can have less impact on the nature or something?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not, engineers are not particularly familiar with the technologies that they are using in Northern Europe versus, Alaska. But definitely, they may be able to learn something. And I'm sure these oil companies are basically, BP is everywhere, like Northern Europe or in Alaska. So I'm sure they know. But of course, depending on what part of Arctic, the weather is different, and then condition must be different. And then also, in the case of Alaska, they still have lots of subsistence fishing and hunting. So the dynamics must be different too.
Yeah,
A lot of the big mammals that go so far north is mainly due to fishing, because they are rich fishing grounds. And I believe that a lot of the rich fauna that we found there is due to these ocean currents that are flowing around the globe. We keep reading about, for example, the Atlantic currents, which is about to collapse. So my first question is there such a current in the Pacific which will potentially also collapse? And if it collapses, that means also that potentially a lot of this food chain is going to disappear. And my second question is then, would you see a lot of these local people just migrating out of that region? If there's no more whales, there are no more, their subsistence, because they seem to be really there because of this way of life, as you said.
Okay, thank you so much. So for the first question about ocean currency and so on and so forth, I'm not sure. I'm not an oceanographer, so I'm an anthropologist. So I'm not familiar with that. But the interesting point is, so because of the climate change, the ocean temperature has been different. So historically, traditionally, we didn't see salmon in the high Arctic. It's up to around below Arctic Circle, but these days, after 2000s, the salmon actually go up to Arctic Ocean. So they're not necessarily going back to where they were born, but they go to rivers where they like to go. So I'm sure these things may be related to ocean currency as well as the temperature of water and so on and so forth. And then regarding the migration, yes and no, depending on which part of Alaska we are talking about. So the interior Alaska, there are lots of migrations. Basically, they are moving out of the village and they're living in the bigger city like Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau. However, in the coastal regions, it's quite interesting. The population has been really growing. And so I've been working with these people in the past 25 years. And one of the village that I have been working is St. Lawrence Island, which is in the middle of the Bering Sea. It's just 40 miles away from Russia, and then 200 miles from Alaska mainland. And it's one of the most windy places in the world. It's middle of the Bering Sea. But anyway, so the population there has been like, I don't know, like 50% up or something in the past 25 years. So part of the reason is, there are lots of teenage pregnancy issues and so forth. However, it really depending on which part of the Alaska we are talking about. And then regarding the animal movement, like migration route and where they live, it really depends. Some years they have abundance. And in terms of bowhead, the population of bowhead whale has been increasing in the past 20 years. So it really depends.
Okay, sorry, we're out of time, so please ask your questions later. Please give